In the 1980s, turbo wasn't just a technology, it was a revolution. Car makers pushed boundaries, creating beasts that roared louder, accelerated faster, and looked like nothing else on the road. These weren't just cars, they were statements, bold, dangerous, beautiful, but not all of them survived. Some vanished quietly, lost in time, buried beneath stricter laws, rising fuel prices, or simple neglect. Their names faded. Their engines fell silent, even as their legacy lived on in whispers and old photographs. Today, we're bringing them back. The ones too rare to remember, fast to ignore, and wild to survive. These are the forgotten turbo beasts of the 80s, and their stories are far from over. The 1980s were a turning point in automotive history. After the oil crisis of the 70s, automakers needed a new way to make cars exciting again, and turbocharging became their secret weapon. Turbo engines gave smaller cars big power. Suddenly, hatchbacks and sedans could challenge sports cars. Car companies across Japan, Europe, and the US raced to add boost, building machines that felt wild, fast, and new. It wasn't just about speed, it was about attitude. Turbo cars of the 80s were loud, bold, and full of personality. Drivers loved them for their unpredictable nature and aggressive sound. But the world was changing fast. Emission laws tightened, safety rules became stricter, and many of these turbocharged rebels disappeared before most people even knew they existed. In this video, we'll uncover 5 of these rare machines, the forgotten turbo beasts that defined a wild era. Car number 1, Mazda 323 GTX. In the late 1980s, Mazda quietly released a monster. It didn't look like much, just a compact hatchback with clean, simple lines. But underneath that modest shell was a rally-ready machine, the Mazda 323 GNX. Built for the World Rally Championships Group A category, the GTX came with a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine, producing around 132 horsepower, paired with all-wheel drive. That combination gave it insane grip and surprising power for such a small car. It could fly through gravel, snow, or city streets with equal confidence. But here's the strange part. Almost no one remembers it. Despite its rally DNA and incredible potential, the car was never marketed strongly in the US. It was expensive for its class, and many buyers chose flashier models. By the early 90s, Mazda quietly stopped selling it, and the world moved on. Today, it's nearly impossible to find one in good condition. Most were driven hard, raced, or forgotten. But for true car lovers, the 323 GTX is a hidden gem, a car that gave normal drivers a taste of rally glory. Its spirit lives on in modern hot hatches, but the original was raw, mechanical, and thrilling. No fancy screens, no electronic tricks, just turbo boost, all-wheel drive, and a stubborn heart that refused to quit. The 323 GTX wasn't built to impress showroom visitors. It was built to conquer dirt, snow, and time itself. And somehow, in its quiet rebellion, it became legendary. Car number 2, Renault 5 Turbo. At first glance, the Renault 5 Turbo looked like a quirky French hatchback, short, wide, and slightly strange. But under that boxy skin hid one of the most radical designs of the 1980s. This was no ordinary economy car. The Renault 5 Turbo was mid-engined, meaning the engine sat behind the driver like a supercar. It had a turbocharged 1.4-liter engine that produced over 158 horsepower, sending power to the rear wheels. And because it was so light, it launched like a bullet. Built for Group B rallying, this little beast was designed to dominate twisty mountain roads and dirt trails. And it did. It shocked competitors by winning races and earning instant respect from rally fans. But its wild nature also became its curse. The car was difficult to handle for everyday drivers. It was expensive to maintain. And as rally regulations changed and Group B was eventually banned, the Renault 5 Turbo had no place left to shine. Production stopped. Time passed. People moved on. Today, only a few survive. They're rare collector's items sitting in private garages or European museums. But those who drove one never forgot the experience. The turbo lag, the violent power delivery, the insane cornering. This car wasn't just unique, it was fearless. It broke every rule of conventional car design and somehow made it work. It was France's loud, proud mid-engine rebel. The Renault 5 Turbo didn't want to be your daily commuter. It wanted to bite, scream, and drift through gravel like a maniac. And for a brief moment, it ruled the world. Car number 3, Dodge Omni GLH Turbo. In the early 1980s, no one expected much from the Dodge Omni. It was a boxy front-wheel drive economy car, cheap, slow, and built for fuel efficiency, not fun. But then Carroll Shelby got involved, the same man who helped build the legendary Shelby Cobra and Mustang GT 500 decided to turn the boring little Omni into a turbocharged monster. The result? The Dodge Omni GLH Turbo. GLH didn't stand for some fancy badge. It meant goes like hell. And it did. Shelby tuned the 2.2-liter turbo engine to crank out 146 horsepower, which might not sound like much today, but in a small, lightweight hatchback, it was enough to scare Mustangs. It could hit 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds, and it handled like a go-kart on steroids. It was raw, angry, and loud. It wasn't built to impress, it was built to embarrass. But like many great things in the 1980s, the GLH Turbo was too wild for the mainstream. It lacked polish. It wasn't luxurious. And buyers didn't understand why an economy car cost as much as a proper sports coupe. Only a limited number were built before Dodge ended production. The world moved on to smoother, safer, quieter cars. Today, the Omni GLH Turbo is nearly forgotten, unless you're a true car nerd or a Shelby fanatic. Most have rusted away or been stripped for parts, but those who know, it was America's answer to European hot hatches. A blue-collar street weapon that didn't care about rules, and it lived up to its name. It really did go like hell. Car number 4, Saab 900 Turbo SPG. If the 1980s had a car built by engineers who thought like pilots, it was the Saab 900 Turbo SPG. Saab wasn't your typical car maker. They originally built fighter jets, and that spirit of precision and rebellion was packed into the 900 Turbo. This wasn't a car for show-offs. It was for thinkers, for drivers who wanted something different. Under the hood sat a turbocharged 2.0-liter engine that made around 175 horsepower, paired with front-wheel drive. That may not sound crazy, but the 900 Turbo SPG Special Performance Group delivered its power in a wild, unpredictable wave. Pure 1980s turbo lag, followed by a sudden burst of speed. Its design was strange. The windshield was curved like a cockpit. The ignition switch was placed between the front seats. It looked like no other car on the road because Saab didn't care about trends. They cared about function. And that's why some people loved it and others didn't get it at all. The 900 Turbo SPG had sharp handling, a unique chassis balance, and a quiet confidence that only Saab fans truly appreciated. But it was expensive, misunderstood, and never fully embraced by the mainstream car world. As the 1990s arrived, smoother and safer cars took over. Saab's oddball charm faded. Eventually, the company went bankrupt, and the 900 Turbo became a memory. But for a special group of drivers, it was a car with a soul, the kind that made you feel connected to the road, to the machine, and to the idea of driving itself. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't perfect, but the Saab 900 Turbo SPG was a fighter jet in disguise, and it flew under the radar for far too long. Car number 5, Buick GNX. In a decade filled with flashy colors and wild designs, one car stood out by wearing pure black and making no noise until it struck. The Buick GNX wasn't loud in style, but it was deadly in performance. Born from the already fast Buick Grand National, the GNX was the final limited edition beast. Buick worked with McLaren Performance Technologies to fine-tune its turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 engine, pushing it to 276 horsepower and an earth-moving 360 pound-feet of torque. Real-world tests showed it could hit 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, faster than Ferraris of that time. It was a muscle car disguised as a villain, quiet, black, ruthless. But Buick didn't want to build muscle cars forever. The GNX was meant to be a last roar. Only 547 units were ever made. After that, it was gone. Why? Emission laws, shifting buyer interests, GM's changing priorities. Whatever the reason, the GNX disappeared as suddenly as it arrived. Collectors realized its power too late. Prices skyrocketed. Today, finding one is nearly impossible, and owning one is like owning a myth. It didn't handle like a sports car. It didn't pretend to be sophisticated. It was pure American boost, bold and terrifying. And it did it all with a quiet grin behind a blacked-out grille. Some cars lived to impress. The GNX lived to destroy. It wasn't just a car, it was the end of an era. And like all great legends, it didn't need a second chance. It only needed one perfect moment, and it took it. By the early 1990s, the world that gave birth to these turbo beasts had changed. Governments tightened emission laws. Insurance companies raised rates on high-performance vehicles. Buyers wanted safer, smoother, more efficient cars, not raw, unpredictable machines. Automakers shifted focus. Turbos were no longer wild. They were controlled, quiet, and refined. The loud, laggy, rebellious engines of the 80s became outdated overnight. Some cars faded due to poor sales. Others were built in such small numbers that they were forgotten before they had a chance to shine. But to the people who remember, the sound of a turbo spooling, the sudden jolt of power, the danger and thrill, these cars were never just machines. They were alive. They weren't meant to last forever, but for one short, glorious moment, they ruled the road. Which of these turbo monsters surprised you the most? Did you grow up hearing stories about one? Or maybe you actually drove one? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the cars time tried to erase.